Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number 27 of On the Sidelines. My name is Benedict Rhodes,
And I'm Matthew Liam Bruni.
and we have a lot for you on today's episode. It's the first time we've done one of these in a while, Matthew. So, first of all, how are you doing, and what have you been up to since we last did an episode?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I mean, just finishing. I mean, both me and you are finishing up our degrees in our respective programs. I just finished my program in Bachelor of Music from U of T. So right now, just sort of enjoying the first couple weeks of summer, and eventually graduation coming up pretty soon. But yeah, how about you?
Yeah, same thing. Just finished the Bachelor of Journalism program at Humber. Just it's the same thing. Just enjoying not having assignments to work on. Still doing stuff with the Canadian Premier League, of course, and working on other things. But yeah, exciting to not have that and assignments on top of it. So it's always an exciting time. And like I said, graduation's coming up in less than a month now for me. So it's exciting times.
Yeah, definitely exciting time in our lives, and definitely an exciting time in the sports world. I mean, since we were last on, there has been a lot going on, especially in the past couple of weeks. So we'll get started with the NHL playoffs, which I mean, if you're a sports fan in general, was probably one of the better weekends of hockey that you've probably watched in a while, because of course, five Game Sevens occurred this weekend, three involving Canadian teams, and of course, Leafs fans know what the results were. Different results though for the Alberta teams. And also, I should mention, seven of the first eight rounds went at least six games, except of course the Colorado Nashville series, which was probably shouldn't even been played anyways. But anyways, which team impressed you the most, or also disappointed you the most?
Yeah, I think disappointed me the most is, as you said, Nashville. Like, getting swept is always disappointing for any team, but I think for a team that's been pretty good in the playoffs the last couple of years and had a couple of good runs and has been a decent regular season team, you think maybe they wouldn't get swept at least. I think, like you said, Colorado was probably always the favorite. They were the best team in the Western Conference this year, but yeah, I'd say Nashville were probably the most disappointing. And for impressed, I thought the Flames. Like, I mean, they went to Game 7. They probably would have liked to wrap it up a bit sooner in the series, but the Stars were challenging a challenging team for them, and they showed their perseverance. They didn't buckle under the pressure, and they took it 7 games and are now on to the next round.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. I mean, for me, I guess the most disappointing team I would say is Pittsburgh, because obviously they were up 3-1 against the Rangers. And they were dealing with, of course, with the Sidney Crosby injury, and their main goalie Tristan Jarry only started game seven in this series. So Pittsburgh didn't really have. I mean, the goaltending wasn't really there for them, so they had Louis Domingue in for most majority of that first round series. Um, and yeah, of course, blowing a 3-1 lead is one of the more common things in sports in general. But you know, I mean, Pittsburgh just was caught in this 3-1 devastation. And I'd say for me, the most impressed that I am with the team is Edmonton Oilers. Um, I mean, it seemed like they were going to be like going, down after Game Five when they lost in overtime to LA. But they stepped up. I mean, Evander Kane stepped up, McDavid stepped up. Winning Game Six on the road and winning Game Seven at home 2-0 on Saturday night. I think it just showed how resilient the Oilers are, and yeah, we'll just have to see what happens. This is Connor McDavid's second playoff victory and his whole career there. So we'll see what happens though in the rest of the playoffs though.
Yeah, another interesting team I think was the Bruins. Right, they went down 2-0. They came back. They had a 2-2 and ended up losing right at the end. So I think they're always a team that they're never out of it until they're officially out of it. And I think them and their fans will be disappointed with that series. And um, yeah, I think a disappointing loss for them. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I just mentioned Pittsburgh, you just mentioned Bruins. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens to those two teams in the offseason, because of course, those two teams have had groups together for a long time. Obviously Crosby and Malkin been together for a long time. Marchand, Bergeron on the Bruins have been there for a while. It'll be interesting to see what happens for those two teams in the offseason, what they end up doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk about some other teams and maybe what they need to do in the offseason coming up in a second as well. Actually, maybe let's just jump into that. Let's talk about the Leafs. We're obviously a Toronto-ish based show. Both Leafs fans, unfortunately. Matthew, it's 5 Game 7 losses in a row for these Leafs. I believe they're the first team ever in the top four North American Sports League to lose 5 Game 7s in a row. How disappointing was that? Although the Leafs, they I think it's fair to say the Leafs didn't lose this series, but the Lightning won this series. If you get what I mean.
Well, look, I mean, before this series started, I mean, everyone knew it was going to be a challenge for the Leafs to beat Tampa. I mean, I guess something positive to take away. I mean, I know it's a general point, but you know, they were there essentially the whole series, but you know, playing two terrible games in game 2 and 4, I'm pretty sure were the horrible games for the Leafs in the series. You know, those kind of games, you know, are going to bite you, especially you know in a playoff round with Tampa Bay. You know, the reigning Stanley Cup champions. You know, you can't make mistakes like that. And you know, even in Game 6 too, I you know bring up the 5-on-3 that really screwed up the Leafs there. And you know all the questionable refing, which I won't discuss, but you know it's that play too that kind of messed up the Leafs. And you know Tampa Bay tied the game in Game 6, won it in OT, and then of course we know what happened in Game 7 when you know, it seemed like only Morgan Riley and Jake Campbell only showed up to play on Game 7. But you know, it's disappointing. At least it's not against the Bruins. You know, at least it's a tougher opponent. You know, understandable, but it's kind of inexcusable for this to continue on for a long time.
Yeah, it is disappointing, but also Andre Vasilevsky was fantastic in that for the Lightning. He was a brick wall for a lot of this series. You were right, by the way. It was Game 2 and 4 that the Lightning won. It was 5-3 to the Lightning in Game 2, and then Game 4 was 7-3 in Game 4 in this series. But um, I think one thing that's important to note about this series as well is in the past, maybe some of the Leaf stars haven't shown up in the playoffs. You know, Mitch Marner's playoff struggles, for example, have been pretty well documented. I think he went 16 games without scoring a goal. It was, I believe, in the playoffs, or 1 goal in 16 games or something. And but this series, you know, Matthews was on his game. Tavares looked good at times. Morgan Riley, you mentioned, scored a couple of goals, and the big players were stepping up when they needed to. Just couldn't get it done in the final game.
Yeah, I mean, to only score, you know, even I bring up last year's game. You know, they only scored 1 goal against Montreal in Game 7. You know, it's kind of you can't win a game. You can't win a Game 7 only scoring 1 goal. I mean, you know, your stars have to step up more, and obviously, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what they do in the off season. If they blow it up, keep the team the same, they keep the core together. But yeah, I really don't know. I really don't know what they're going to do at this point because I don't know. It's just you know every Leaf fan is shocked, but you know it's not surprising considering that they haven't won a playoff series in 18 years.
And if you in a dream scenario can make one move to improve this Leafs team on or off the ice, but let's say on the ice, what would you do? Like, what position do you think needs the most upgrade?
Oh gosh, I think maybe on defense they should probably improve there. I mean, you know, I think was it Kerfoot or I think it was Kerfoot in Game 6 where you know he made a sloppy mistake and giving away you know an easy goal to Tampa Bay. You know, it's those kind of plays that you know the Leafs need to you know kind of consider improving on defense. And you know they made silly turnovers in this series too. So you know I think maybe defense would be the way to go. But I mean, what would you say?
Yeah, I'd agree. I think the Mark Giordano trade, so midway through the season, was good. They got a veteran leader. Veteran leaders, of course, were very important for the Leafs all season, especially in this series. With Jason Spezza, for example, is a prime example of that. I think that was kind of a good pickup for the Leafs. I don't think you maybe want someone who's in his mid to late 30s, if you want, like a Giordano, but I think another sort of shutdown defenseman would definitely want to do the team any wrong. But the problem is how do you fit this under the salary cap, of course, but um, yeah, I think if they can, improve in defense as well, they can, I don't think defense was the reason they lost this series. I think, like I said, Tampa Bay was the reason they lost it. If it makes sense, like Tampa Bay was the better team, obviously through the 7 games. So, but again, you said just limiting the mistakes and taking advantage of these opportunities will turn them from a great team into a very great team. And I think that's something that they just didn't have in this series, which Tampa Bay did have the ability to sort of get things done when they needed to get things done.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Tampa isn't going to be going away anytime soon. I mean, they're going to probably continue being this dominant for a long time. And if you're the Leafs, I mean, if you're going to have this team in your way, you know, you gotta you got to make changes. I mean, I know they only lost by 1 goal in Game 7, but there's just changes that have to be made. I mean, where they could have put Tampa Bay away a couple times in this series, but obviously it wasn't the result they were looking for. I mean, I wanted to move on and talk about one goalie who I think was the star of the first round series, fittingly for the Dallas Stars, Jake Ottinger for Dallas. I mean, this guy is just phenomenal. I mean, he even though his team lost, I mean, Game 7 he faced at least 60 shots, if I'm not wrong, and at least 100 shot attempts. Only managing to give up 3 goals in that loss to Calgary, but. I mean, what do you have to say about this goalie, Ben? I mean, how do you think he was at least the MVP for a losing team in the first round?
I think that's fair to say. Yeah, an MVP for a losing team. Like I think one thing the Stars have realized now is they have a franchise goalie on their hands, right? Like this guy's 23 years old and we're turning 24 until December, until like partway through next season. So he could play another 10, 15 years in this league if he ends up being as good as he's shown so far in his career. I think if he can keep that up and stay healthy and stay at this level, he could be a fantastic goalie for this team for a long time to come. And I think he kind of is just again just breaking into the team and onto the NHL level. But this was a series that kind of proved that he belongs at this level. He can be one of the best in this league on his day. And again, you don't want a goalie facing 60 shots. Like that's a problem for Dallas's defense. But it's always good to know if you do that, then you have someone like that behind them who can turn these shots away.
Yeah, no doubt. He blew away. I think he blew away every fan in the first round just by his performance, and I think he was the reason why this series went to 7 games because I think he was definitely the MVP for Dallas in the first round, and like I said, taking it, I think he was the main reason they went to 7 games. But yeah, it was really fun to see what he did in the first round. I mean, we'll see what his future looks like in Dallas, though.
And also, their other goalie right now was Braden Holtby, right? Who's injured. He wasn't he isn't the Braden Holtby that played for Washington a few years ago, who was one of the best in the world anymore. But you think he's was probably the starter in Dallas, and I think now he's maybe gonna be the backup. He's still a veteran player. He's still a good player, but I think Ottinger probably just sealed his spot as the number one.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think he definitely is going to be starting in net for Dallas next season. I guess now we should move on to the second round because we got some fun second round matchups to talk about. I mean, 2 of the 4 are either provincial or state rivals. Of course, we got the Battle of Alberta, which is happening for the first time in 31 years in the playoffs. So that I think that's going to be electrifying for both Edmonton and Calgary. Of course, we also got the Battle of Florida, which which is a rematch from last season when Tampa Bay won in 6 against Florida. And Florida's obviously like a much stronger team this time around, winning the President's Trophy. So that should be an interesting one too. And then the other 2 are Colorado and St. Louis, and Carolina versus the Rangers. So, I mean, what are your thoughts for the second round? I mean, I don't think this should be a question, but which do you think is the best second round matchup here?
Yeah, there's some good games here. You mentioned the 2 sort of state/provincial ones are obviously the 2 that stand out. I think it has to be Flames and Oilers. Obviously, being in Canada, that's the one that we're going to hear all about. But the Flames have been a very good team this season, but also coming up against Connor McDavid, who's the best player in the world. It'll be an interesting test for them. I think Johnny Gaudreau has been good this year after a couple of down seasons. I think it's fair to say. Um, but again, those 2 teams playing each other in the playoffs, especially, is always a good game. We haven't seen them in the playoffs since in our lifetime. But, I mean, like you can expect, the intensity to ramp up to another level to play each other in the playoffs, and yeah, I think Flames and Oilers is definitely gonna be the series to watch.
I mean, I agree too. I mean, this is when the bracket came out for the playoffs. I mean, when every matchup was finalized for the first round. I mean, this is a potential matchup everyone was looking forward to. And I mean, if you're a Canadian fan, you're glad at least you're gonna have at least one Canadian team for sure in the Final Four. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's got to be the Battle of Alberta. Although, I mean, the Battle of Florida can be interesting too. I mean,
Definitely.
it could be a physical series for sure. Like I said, Florida has improved vastly since last year. I mean, Tampa Bay is obviously going for a three-peat, but you know, I still rank the Battle of Alberta as the best second round matchup over the Battle of Florida. But the Battle of Florida is number two.
I think Rangers and Hurricanes will be an interesting one too, right? Like I think these are two teams who maybe weren't expected to win their first round series. Like I don't think people expected the Hurricanes to beat the Bruins, and then also the Rangers coming back against yeah, against Pittsburgh and beating them. I think was maybe a bit of a shock when Pittsburgh went up in that series. So um, I think that'll be an interesting series as well. It depends on can the stars on each team step up. And I think that'll be another interesting one as well. But again, like the Lightning and the Panthers and the Oilers and the Flames are definitely the two sort of marquee, and there's a good chance that the winner of those two series could be the conference winners.
It will be interesting too. I mean, you mentioned Carolina versus New York, and even Edmonton and Calgary. I think both. I mean, all four teams just came off of Game 7 this weekend, so it'll be interesting to see how fatigue plays a role in these first couple of games this week when the second round gets underway. But yeah, I mean, those are definitely two matchups to look forward to, and the Rangers are this is sort of their like coming out year, with a young team with Igor Shesterkin and net. I mean, you know it'll be fun to see what happens with that series as well.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned fatigue, but it'd be interesting to see the flip side of that as well with the Avalanche, right? Like they've had a decent amount of time off now since they swept their series. So it'll be interesting to see if they're cold or if they come out firing because they've had an extra break off. It could work both ways, of course.
Yeah, especially considering they haven't made the conference final in a while. I mean, they just lost last year to Vegas, and I think Dallas in 2020 and 2019 they didn't get to the conference final either. So we'll see if they can finally break that wall this year.
Let's get into some predictions. Let's go second round. Let's go is prediction by prediction. Do you want to just go again each series, just say who you think's gonna win?
Yeah, yeah. I'll start out in the East. Tampa and Florida. I think I know Florida's looking for revenge this year against Tampa, but I think Tampa's just too good. I mean, Vasilevsky, I think will steal the show in this series, and I see Tampa winning in 6. With Carolina versus New York, I think Carolina will win this series in 5. I would say against the Rangers. And going out west, in Colorado and St. Louis, again, another rematch from last year with Colorado sweeping St. Louis last year. This time around, I see Colorado winning in 5 games. And then the Battle of Alberta, I really hope it goes to 7 games because that's what we all need, especially Canadian fans. But I see Calgary winning the Battle of Alberta in 7 games.
Yeah, I agree with you on the Battle of Alberta. I think I think it will go 7. I think that'll be exactly what the NHL wants, and I agree. I think Calgary might win that series. If Connor McDavid can't, do his McJesus and go crazy like he can do. Avalanche Blues, Avalanche, I think is going to be victorious there. I think they're probably the Stanley Cup favorites, in my opinion. Lightning and Panthers, I'm gonna go for the Panthers. I think they're gonna break the streak for the Lightning, and then Rangers and Hurricanes. Let's go Rangers. Let's have a breakout series from Alexis Lafreniere and let's see them go ahead to the next round.
Yeah, and I mean, would it be too early to talk about conference final predictions? I mean, with the teams we chose, but I mean,
Sure. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. For me, I mean, I picked Tampa and Carolina out of that series. Again, another rematch from last year, a second round, I'm pretty sure. I see Carolina going to the Cup final. And then out west, Calgary versus Colorado, I see Colorado. And I think, I mean, to pick a cup winner right now, I mean, I think it's going to be, I'm going to pick Carolina. I mean, as of now, I think they're resilient enough to win, the cup. I mean, they've improved vastly over the past couple of seasons when they've had, a couple of successful regular seasons, a couple of disappointing playoff exits. But I just think this time around, I think they're going to get it done. That's my prediction.
Yeah, for the Eastern Conference, I think the Panthers will go to the final. I think they were the best team in the regular season for a reason. I think they'll beat the Rangers if those two get there. The Western Conference, like I said, I don't think anyone's beating the Avalanche. I just think I think they're probably the best team left in the playoffs. If they weren't when the playoffs started, of course, and I think the Flames would give them a challenge, but I do think it'll be Colorado when it's all said and done.
Yeah, and we'll just have to see what happens. I mean, it's the NHL playoffs. You never you never know what's going to happen. But yeah, we'll see how our predictions look in a couple of weeks' time. Um, we just wanted to briefly mention too, of course, the double IHF World Championships are happening right now. Did you want to explain a little bit of how Team Canada is doing so far?
Yes, Canada's 3-0 at this tournament so far, which is a good start for them, of course. They beat Slovakia 5-1 earlier today. A couple of goals from Pierre-Luc Dubois as well, who currently leads the team with 4 goals and 1 assist through 3 games. And he's tied for the team lead on points with Josh Anderson from the Montreal Canadiens. And Canada also beat Italy 6-1 on Sunday and Germany 5-3 on Friday. So they're off to a good start. And in goal, Logan Thompson is 52 saves in 2 games. So hasn't been the busiest goalie in this tournament, but he's been solid when he's been called upon. And you know if Canada can have good goalkeeping, they'll always have a chance.
Yeah, I mean they've definitely had a better start than last championship last year. I mean they were obviously 0-3 to start that the 2021 double IHFs, but in the end they eventually won it against Finland, I believe, in the gold medal game. So it's we'll have to see what happens this year. It'll be definitely an exciting next couple weeks or so for this tournament.
And definitely, Matthew, let's wrap up hockey there, and we'll be back in a second to talk about the NBA playoffs.
See you soon. All right, and welcome back to part two of episode 27. We're now going to get into the NBA playoffs, which also has, had some excitement as well. Maybe not as much as the NHL, but second round definitely brought some great matchups. What was a big takeaway for you, Ben, in the second round of the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean both teams from last year's final, of course, being eliminated. With the Bucks losing to the Celtics and the Suns losing to the Mavericks. It was I think I don't know about unexpected because the Celtics and the Mavericks are both good teams, but the Bucks and the Suns both being eliminated, I think was maybe a bit of a shock. But I think people kind of expected maybe to see a finals rematch with those two teams, and to not have those two teams in the final is definitely I think a bit of a surprise. What about you?
I mean, for me, I'm just shocked at how badly the Phoenix Suns lost on Sunday in Game 7. I mean, I wasn't expecting, a huge blowout like that. I mean, I was expecting the Mavs to be competitive in this series, but I mean, I was not expecting that from, Luka and company in Game 7. But yeah, I think for me that was a big takeaway, and also I guess I'll mention, Milwaukee and the Celtics too, which was also a great series. In the end, Giannis's involvements with for the Bucks didn't really come out to to win, but because of course his team got blown out by at least I think 20 plus points on Game 7. So I mean, even as you mentioned too, we're not having a finals rematch like maybe some people expected. But yeah, we're gonna have two new NBA finalists compete this year.
Yeah, I think it's especially surprising to have the Bucks lose at home in Game 6. You thought maybe they'll get it done, and they didn't. Have Boston won the road, and then went back to TD Garden and made it 4-3 at home. So I think that was another disappointing thing if you're a Bucks fan or player, of course, is how they lost that series. They had a chance to wrap things up at home, and they just couldn't do it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I guess, if you're talking about, the disappointments, which one would you say is the biggest one out of the four that lost?
I think probably the Bucks. I think they're the reigning champions. Of course, they're always going to be in with a chance when they have one of the best players in the world, Giannis Antetokounmpo, who by pure coincidence, I actually have his book on my desk right now. I haven't read it yet, but I will. But I think he's a player who can win a game by himself on both sides of the ball. So I think it is a little disappointing if you're a Bucks fan to lose twice and both times by a healthy margin as well. And I don't know. I think that's probably the most disappointing thing for me is the Bucks not at least getting back to the the conference final at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm gonna say Phoenix. I should mention too, Luka Doncic had the same amount of points as the Phoenix Suns did in the first half, 27 points. I mean, that just says a lot to you about how big of a blowout that game was last night, or Sunday night, I should say. But I think a lot of people are expecting this team to be back in the NBA Finals. I mean, they had a 64 win season, so you were expecting to have a team that wanted to get back to the finals and wanted, obviously try and get some, trying to get to the finals and win it this time instead of last year where they lost to the Bucks in 6. But, trying to get some revenge this year did not go well for them, for Chris Paul, Devin Booker and company. But yeah, I mean, I think they're going to be a team that's going to be competing, for a championship for a long time. But that game yesterday was just that was terrible for them.
Yeah, the Bucks went 64-18 this season, 8 games ahead of the next best team, which was Memphis. We're 56-26, and the Mavericks are 12 games back at 52-30. So the Bucks were definitely, I think, the favorites in this series. What did you make of those two guys you just mentioned? Chris Paul and Devin Booker. They're getting a lot of heat online right now. People saying they choked or maybe didn't live up to the expectations at least. What do you make of those two guys and their season? And I mean, this season ended, of course.
Yeah, I mean, they did not. They looked terrible in that series when the series was in Dallas. I mean, I should say every game in this series was essentially a blowout, especially in Dallas when Phoenix got blown out in all 3 games that were in Dallas. But for it to happen at home in a closeout game, I mean, they definitely didn't show up. Yes, in Game 7 for Phoenix, but I mean, it's only been, I'd say 3, because 2020 they had that crazy run in the bubble where they went 8-0. They didn't make the playoffs. Last year they made the finals, lost in 6. I mean, obviously this year is a cut short for them, cut short for a team expected to reach the finals in the second round. But, I mean, we'll have to see what happens for them in the future, but I still expect them to, bounce back next year, maybe reach the conference finals. But again, who knows what's going to happen?
And elsewhere in the NBA, of course, beyond those 2 series, you had the Grizzlies and the Warriors. The Grizzlies won that 4. Oh, sorry, Golden State. Won that 4-2 over Memphis, and Miami won 4-2 over the Philadelphia 76ers, who were eliminated on the anniversary of Kawhi's shot, of course, against them. So nice bit of symmetry there.
Yeah, I mean, as a Raptors fan, I was glad that the Sixers were eliminated on that day. I mean, it couldn't be any more fitting for that. I mean, even though Toronto lost in the first round to Philly, we have the championship. Philly doesn't. I mean, it's been a while since they've won too. So yeah, I mean, it couldn't have gone any better for the Raps, even though they lost in the first round.
And former Raptor and Raptors legend, one of the best of all time, of course, Kyle Lowry playing for the Heat.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad to see him performing well with Miami. I think he's been injured for a couple of games now, but props to him in Miami for making the conference final and beating out the Sixers.
And everyone's favorite rap song, Tyler Hero. Moving on to the conference finals now, as you mentioned, we have 2 interesting games. We have the Celtics and the Heat on one side, and then the Mavericks and the Warriors on the western side. What do you make of those 2 series?
Yeah, I think out of the 2, I think the Heat and Celtics will probably be more competitive than the Warriors and Mavs. I mean, obviously the Heat did make the finals a couple of years ago, and they looked strong in the bubble there in 2020. This year was no disappointment for them, of course, being the number 1 seed in the East, having Jimmy Butler, Oladipo, Lowry, and I think they've proven that to be the number 1 seed this year. However, the Celtics, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, that crew has been a great for the Celtics too, and especially in this past series with Milwaukee. But yeah, I think I see the Heat and Celtics being a more competitive series. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think number 1 and number 2 in the Eastern Conference is always going to be an exciting matchup. I think when the NBA when the playoffs comes around, you want the best teams playing in the final games, and I think you're getting that in the Eastern Conference. I'm not sure if you're getting it in the Western Conference. But obviously the best teams beat the best teams. So in that sense, Mavericks and Warriors beat the two teams ahead of them. So in that sense, it is the best teams against the best teams. But I do think the Heat and the Celtics will be the sort of the premier series here. I think whoever wins that could very well go on to be the NBA champion when it's all said and done. And also always exciting to see the battle for Kelly Olynyk, the Canadian, of course, played for both these teams. That's always exciting.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'll say that, obviously, the Warriors' past couple of down seasons, I mean, it was sort of, at the same time the pandemic started, the Warriors downfall sort of started until, obviously this year where they were the 2 seed and now we're in the conference finals again for the first time since 2019. So, you're kind of getting those, Warriors dynasty vibes again if because obviously they've won a couple championships in the past decade, but it will. I mean, I don't know. It depends who you talk to, which fan you talk to. But I mean, it's great to see the Warriors being this good again, and that also should be a competitive series with the Mavs. But I mean, the Warriors have just been great this year.
Prediction time. Give me the two winners and who's going to win the NBA Finals.
Well, I see the Warriors winning against the Mavs. I think that's going to go 6. And in terms of the Heat and Celtics, I'm going to say the Celtics win in 7. I think, in that series, Tatum will come in clutch for the Celtics and, give the Celtics that win, that series win. And then in terms of winning the NBA title, I think it's going to be the Warriors. I think they're the favorites out of the 4 remaining teams, and I think that they're going to close it out this year and win.
Yeah, I agree with you that I think the Celtics are going to beat the Heat. I do think though that we might see the Mavericks beat the Warriors. I think Luka Doncic can win a game by himself as well, of course, and as we've seen a couple of times in these playoffs, and I think he can be one of the best players in this league. And I think it'll be a close series. My hot take is that the Mavs are going to win in I'll say in 7. Let's go the full distance, and the Celtics will beat the Mavericks in the final if that is the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I mean that would be crazy to see Luka win it. In his first couple of years in Dallas. I mean, that would be a great story for the sports year in of itself. But again, we'll have to see what happens with the next couple of weeks for the conference finals and NBA finals. But we'll definitely revisit that for sure. I guess we can move on now to the NFL, which just released its schedule last week for the 2022 season. Obviously, no shortage of amazing matchups coming up in this season. But yeah, I guess I'll start with you, Ben. What are you looking forward? What 2 or 3 matchups are you looking forward to in this upcoming season?
Yeah, I think one of the most exciting games in this regular season is going to be straight away in week 1. I think the Rams and the Bills, the Super Bowl champions versus the Super Bowl hopefuls, the team that think they can finally get over the line and have made some big moves. I think they can get over the line in Buffalo. So I think week 1 again, it's only week 1, so no season is going to be won or lost in this game. But I do think for a week 1 matchup, that's going to be a very exciting one because it could also be, of course, the final matchup of the season in the Super Bowl come the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely definitely right off the bat. You said, I mean that's definitely a great matchup for sure. I'm gonna pick another game with the Rams involved. I'm gonna go with the Chiefs, Rams versus Chiefs. Um, a couple of years ago, these teams met up in the regular season, and the final score was in the 50s for each team. Like that was probably one of the better regular season games in NFL history because of how back and forth it was. It was just an amazing regular season game. Brought a lot of excitement for sure on a Monday night. But yeah, for me, I've got to say that as my first matchup because I think we were close to seeing this last season as a Super Bowl matchup, but of course the Chiefs lost to Cincinnati in the AFC Championship game. But I think this could be a potential Super Bowl preview.
Yeah, for my second game, I'm going to sort of combine our first 2 picks, and I'm going to go for the Bills and the Chiefs. Another Bills game. I think they're going to be a good team this season. And the Chiefs, of course, have been one of the best teams over the past several seasons, and I think they'll be right there again. The Bills lost to the Chiefs last year, and I believe the year before as well. So, the Chiefs and the Bills could be the AFC Conference Final preview. And I do think that's going to be an interesting one in the middle of this regular season.
Yeah, hopefully we see the same excitement from the AFC divisional game from last year, of course, with this matchup. But I mean, for me, for my second matchup, I'm going to go with a Super Bowl matchup we saw a couple seasons ago in the Chiefs versus the Bucks. I mean, nothing else to say besides Mahomes versus Brady. I mean, another potential Super Bowl preview, of course. Of course, the big story for the Bucks is Brady coming back for another year. Of course, after fake retirement, he's coming back for the Bucks. I mean, who knows how long he's going to be on the Bucks for? But waiting on the other side for him is a huge contract with Fox. So we'll have to see. He's got that to look forward to in the future as being an NFL analyst. But we'll just have to see how much longer he's playing for the Bucks for.
Yeah, before we get into our third game, let's talk about that quickly. Tom Brady retires, then it puts this like 20 tweet thread out saying like all these things. So he's gonna miss his teammates and coaches and his past teammates and stuff. And then like a couple months later, not even, he was like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I'm coming back." Like, what do you make of that? And do you think it was a fake retirement, or do you think someone convinced him to come back?
I think it was probably a fake retirement. I mean, the whole retirement thing just lasted like I think just 40 days. I'm pretty sure around that time. I'm kind of guessing, but I think it was 40 days. So probably one of the shortest retirements in any sport ever. But that's just such a Brady thing to do because he's too. It would be too. I don't know. I mean, it would be too soon, I think. I mean, I know he's getting up there in age, but he can still play. I mean, you saw last season, obviously, he got his team to the divisional round, lost against the Rams, but I think he's still got a couple more years in him. As much as people hate to hear that, but still got a couple more years in him, and we'll see what he does with Tampa Bay for a couple seasons to come, I guess.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's no longer the best quarterback in the NFL. That now belongs to Matthew Stafford, of course. But I do think I think Brady's the kind of guy who wants to go out on top. I think he's gonna want to, if he wins the Super Bowl this year, I think he is done. But again, we'll see. He said he probably has another year or two left in him. He still has the arm for it. So we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see. What he thinks and what the Bucks think and I don't know. Maybe even a 1 year retirement season in New England. I don't know. Who knows?
Oh man, that would be something. I mean, like I said, he's got
Unlikely,
a
but you never know.
yeah. I mean, like I said, he's got a huge TV contract coming up for him whenever he wants to go, finish his football career. So yeah, I mean, we'll just see. I mean, he could very well win a Super Bowl this year for Tampa Bay. But again, we'll see what happens. What's your third game though, for in terms of a game you're looking forward to?
Yeah, so out for the New Year's Day game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens. It's a big rivalry, one of the biggest in the NFL. It's right towards the end of the season. I believe it's the second last game of the season for those two teams. And it's during the festive period. All the eyeballs are to be on this game. New Year's Day is always a popular day to watch sports with your family if something's on, whether it's the NBA or the NFL or whatever. So there'll be a lot of people pay attention to this game, and of course it's the first season without Ben Roethlisberger for the Steelers. So it'll be a transformational year. We're not sure, of course, how they'll be when it comes to the end of the season. If they'll be the same team they were last year, but if they can get there, if they can get to a good level, and the Ravens play a level that they can play to, I think that'll be interesting. And of course, the Ravens looking to finally get over the hump and do something in the playoffs as well. So they could be trying to peak at the right time towards the end of the season. And I think this is all the makings of a very exciting game.
Yeah, definitely a big rivalry, and couldn't have come at a better time on New Year's Day for sure. For me, for my final game, I'm going to go with a returning game for a former player, and go with the Broncos versus the Seahawks. I mean, it's just fitting that in the very first game in a Bronco uniform that Russell Wilson returns to Seattle. He sort of gets the emotions away in the first game, of being like how proud he was to play for Seattle and all that, deliver a Super Bowl for the team. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's a good thing for Russell Wilson to get it out of the way, just so he gets his emotions out and focuses on the season. And of course, Denver is a team with some expectations, to say the least. I mean, compete in a tough AFC West. With of course the Raiders, Chargers, and the Chiefs. But I guess in terms of the Seahawks, it'll be interesting to see how they do post Russell Wilson. Of course, we'll see how they both perform.
And anyone who tells you this was randomly scheduled and not intentionally done like this is lying to you.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
is definitely a big takeaway to sort of begin the season, and there'll be a lot of eyeballs on this game, that's for sure.
For sure. I mean, is there any honorable mentions you want to throw out there in terms of, because I mean, we do have a lot of great matchups this year. Is there
uh,
any honorable mention?
I don't know, do you have a Super Bowl preview this year? I didn't even look for that. Super Bowl rematch, I mean, sorry, of last year.
I don't think so. I mean, I guess for me, I'll just say, I mean, I just found this game right now. I mean, looking through lists and all that, but the Battle of LA is happening on week 17 on New Year's Day too, Sunday Night Football. So, um, again, another matchup with two teams expected to compete this year, and with Justin Herbert and Matthew Stafford, that should be a great QB matchup. But yeah, I mean, I guess just to throw it out there because it's Battle of LA and it's SoFi Stadium. It'll be cool.
Yeah, definitely. That's always a good one. Except whenever there's these rivalry games, that's the ones fans want to see the most, the ones that have the biggest sort of bragging rights on them. And like I said, towards the end of the season as well, heading into the playoffs, these are two teams who want to be there, and I think it'll be again another very exciting game to sort of close out the regular season.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sorry, I think did you mention before about a Super Bowl preview? Do you have an early
Oh,
prediction if that?
uh, hmm. let's go. Let's go. Rams and Bills.
And who would win?
Not the Bills.
Oh, I don't think Buffalo's gonna like that after what you say, but um, I mean, for me, oh geez, I'm gonna say I'm gonna say Tampa and oh my gosh, uh, I'll go Tampa Bay and Buffalo. That was a matchup I really wanted to see, this past season, and I want to really get that matchup. Buffalo would be looking for revenge against Brady in the biggest game of the year.
And do you think they'll
Uh,
get
no.
it? Sorry,
No.
Buffalo. Sorry,
Yeah,
Buffalo
sorry,
fans.
Buffalo. No, I don't. I
um,
mean, Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs are great. Great players, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like Brady just has some magic in him to win another Super Bowl, and yeah, for that reason, I'm gonna go with Tampa Bay, and it's taking place in Arizona too. I think yeah, it will be fun.
yeah. Anything else on NFL?
No, I think I'm good. If you wanted to, unless you wanted to add anything else.
No, I think I'm good as well. Let's wrap this up then. That's episode number 27 of On the Sidelines. Thank you as always for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and do all that fun stuff. And Matthew, another episode in the books.
Yes, and sorry to Bills fans. Maybe they'll prove us wrong next season, but who knows?
That's all these Leafs and Buffalo fans overlap.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.